So, welcome to the annual Ideal Village Conference of the Stanford University. Thank you for inviting me to this, to give a briefing on what I think about this matter. Right. So, let me start with this. It's interesting that you have called it the village story. And that it is an ideal village conference. Now, I want to say this. Today we live in, I am talking from the Indian standpoint of view and also from the international standpoint of view. Today we live in most of us, many of us dwell in urban cities and in skyscrapers and multi-storied structures. So many people going every day to the office, coming back, the rush, the electric trains, the buses, the cars, the traffic, the horns. We live, many of us live this way. But what we should remember, at least from the standpoint of India, we are still, our life still, most of the population lives in villages. We live in villages. I had this one experience because we went on a walk of hope in 2015-16. We went on a walk of hope. Ideally, it was a unity walk. It was also a research in some way. And it was a walk of hope that things will improve. So we all live on hope. Started from Kanyakumari. We walked till Srinagar. Of course, there were breaks in between, short breaks here and there. But 7,500 kilometers we did on the road. It took more than 1 year and roughly 3 months to walk. See, while the projected theme of the walk was the walk of hope and walk of unity and so on, the important thing was that we as a group, small group of people walking, which later on developed into a big group because we found that people were interested in it. It was a totally non-political walk. It was a walk for the people and by us, by the people. And more than the lesson of hope and unity, which I used to stop at every place and talk about to people, small groups used to gather, the major thing, I think the takeaway from this walk is that we learned many things. First, we learned that still a large percentage of the population lived in villages. Even those who were in the urban areas at some point had migrated to the cities. And even though there was poverty sometimes in many villages, they seemed much better looked after, the people there, than the people in the cities. Because everybody knew each other. You know how in the cities, if you are in a multi-storied complex, sometimes 3 door numbers across, nobody knows who is living there. Nice. In the United States and other places, it's like that. Nobody knows who's living, nobody's interested in others' matters. It has some advantage, but mainly disadvantage, because nobody knows what's happening to the neighbor. Somebody may be dead in a flat for days, nobody knows. It's when the smell comes that the police comes. But in a village, we went to villages where there were 5,000 people, 500 people. I must tell you this, that the villages, when we walked in, somehow they got information that there's somebody walking. We were holding the national flag, so it was not any particular party. They were waiting for us. It's very interesting, and I like especially in Maharashtra, rural Gujarat, people wearing those white topis, what they call Gandhi topis, waiting at the edge of the village, entrance to the village, with some flowers, and welcoming us in. You know what would have happened if we had drone into that village in a car? Nobody would have, they would have thought these guys are coming to take our real estate. Because we were walking, and there were people who walk, who work in the fields, who are farmers, hands-on people, they came to welcome us. And even in a small village, 600 population, let's say 1000 population, they somehow managed to make tea for us. Everybody, when we went to some areas, we were already 200, 300 people walking. Tea was organized for everyone. We sat under the local people tree and we talked. They shared their problems with us. We shared. One of those villages, the entire population was Hindu. I am just looking at the religious point of view. And there were 2 Muslim families. And there was a tomb there. So I asked them, who is looking after this tomb? You too, how do you manage? They said, no, the whole village is looking after the tomb because it is the tomb of a holy man who lived there, who was related to these guys and who passed. Everybody was together looking after it. Now, these are examples of living together in a village and sharing their problems, sharing their happiness, keeping together. This seems to have kind of petered off and almost vanished in the cities. Now, a village is the unit. We have the panchayat, we have the rural areas. They are the units which form the larger population of this country. And this village, any village, is, I live in a kind of a village which is a municipal city of course, but we live a little away from the actual hub of the city, which is like a village. We have Ponnuttipalayam village next to us, Sugali Tanda next to us. These are all little villages. And how do we live? One thing you should understand is, just as the human body has a number of cells and everything starts from one little cell in the system. In the embryo, first it starts with a single cell, then it grows into a human being. In the same way, the village is the ideal integral unit from which the entire thing comes out. The whole thing is formed. So, I would say it is the nerve center from which things can change. So, there are 2 ways we can do. One is take the concepts of the village into the city. Not so easy. People would be so busy with their work, this, that, but still you see what happens in a village. The farmer goes into the field, he works hard, he comes back in the evening, and where does he? Then there is a small meeting, a group comes together, they discuss their problems, then they go and inform those people in charge and try to work it out. This thing is not there in the city anymore. So, these village concepts of simplicity, Oxford, Cambridge, they are all villages, little bit grown of course. So, this concept of taking the village to the city, which means getting people more involved with each other's problems, is one way. The other is, there is another model, which is some parts of Kerala I have seen this. Usually people large scale emigrate into cities, but in these places which I am talking about, instead of emigrating into the cities, all the facilities that are available in the cities are brought into the village. So, you do not have to go to the city, everything is there. Especially today, it is difficult to survive without internet, I understand. So, is it possible that we have all the facilities that the city dweller enjoys brought into the village? It is possible. This is possible. We have to work on it, but it is possible. If this is done, then the village becomes the key center from which everything grows, as it was before. Mahatma Gandhi said, go into the villages, be in the villages, because we are, India in general, look at Bombay for instance, Mumbai, they are a group of islands which at one time were villages, fishing villages, this village that come together, but now it has lost its because of urbanization. I am not saying, I am not against that, but it has lost its essence of the villager who sits and discusses his matters, who is friends with everybody, so we should not lose sight of this. This is the nucleus of our entire development, should be not exactly to live in a village, but the village model. This is very important, and if you can live in villages, well and good, the villages will be better, the cities will have less population and you will grow along with the city dwellers, there is no problem there. I know that I live in Madanampalli, there are lots of people, if you go on Mondays, there is so much traffic because people from far away like 100 kilometers, 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers who live in villages like Chintamani, Kola, they go to work in Bangalore, but they are back in the evening. Why? They do not want to settle down in the city. Why? Because there are many advantages in being in a village, they are different. So, this is, I am myself living in a village. People will say, oh no, because you do not have any work to do. No, we have a lot of work to do. I am sitting down here in the morning, I am talking to you, but there are many other things for me to do. My agenda is set, but I live in a village, therefore, the villager is personal. He is not like a personal. They are not like like machines working. They have their emotions, they have their feelings. So, this is the importance of what a village is, and this is what we should be doing, I think. We need to change slowly. We do not want to imitate the model of New York or Washington and get lost in that model, because we, at least in this country, the essence of our life is a village model. I am not saying everybody should be doing charkas, fine. Things have changed, we need to move, fine. But we should not forget the village ethos. From ancient times, coming to ancient times, we have been having these great universities which are called the wisdom universities in the forests. They are in the Aranyakas, in the forest, and close by there are villages where people live. They go to the teacher to study. And I must remind you that one of the most ancient of the Upanishads and Vedas talk about all inclusive wellness rather than of a separate section of people. Does not matter, no party affiliations here, no group affiliations, no sects, no cults, all that can or cannot be, but people as a whole are looked up as global. When you say global, it does not mean cities, please understand. The global view comes from actually from a village. It comes from a group of people who live here and try to grow globally. Not as if we have to bring what is in one part of the globe and import it into the village. This is not the meaning of global. I have a different definition of being global thinking, not global imitating. These are two things. You can imitate what is happening somewhere, but you still may not be having a global view, because you are thinking only of a particular little group, and a particular affiliation and a particular ideology. If this can open up, then the village itself becomes global. How? Look at the Upanishadic chant, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha. Does it say only this place? Not even this, only this country. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, may all living beings be happy. Sarve Santu Niramaya, may not suffering hit anybody. Sarve. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, may we see all things that are auspicious. Ma Kaschit Dukhapat Bhavet, may not pain touch anyone. all over the world. Now this is global thinking. Where did it come from? Did it come from a big somebody sitting on the top of a skyscraper and thinking? No, it came from a small Vedic village, perhaps on the banks of the river, like Valmiki's ashram on the banks of the river Sarayu, and surrounded by trees, which is why the other Shanti mantra, while talking about peace and goodness, also includes oṣadhayaḥ Shanti, vanaspatayaḥ Shanti, āpaḥ Shanti, pṛthivī Shanti. So, only when all these elements, the trees, the herbs, the sky, the earth, they all are in peace and well-being, we can expect to have a peaceful global humanity. We cannot have otherwise, because we are split. Instead of understanding things together, we would only be splitting things away. So, like somebody said, हमारा काम जोड़ना है, तोड़ना नहीं है. We need to bring things together, and that is a wonderful model in village living. Don't think that the villagers are ignorant or they are no, they are not. You may think so, but they are actually not so. So, now keeping that aside, we have now passed through a very difficult phase. 1.5 years we are stuck in the house, we can't go out, there are lockdowns, a pandemic is on. Believe me, the villagers manage much better than the city dwellers, I am telling you. Right? Because they live as a unit, they live as a group, they live together, they help each other. And because there is fresh air, there are more trees. So people have this idea, that you are happy only when you become urban or when you expand into this. This is not true. I must tell you this. Apparently somebody, a farmer, after a hard day's work, was resting on a charpai on the outskirts of the village, one leg up, happily reading some Ramayana or something. So one guy went there. The guy was told that these villages have to be improved. They are not. So he went to him and said, "Hey, why don't waste time?" Like he said, "Okay, so what should I do? Do like this. Open a bank account. Do this. Okay, then you can expand and make it slightly bigger. Okay, then make it fully bigger and make it corporate. Okay, after that, then you can lie down happily." He said, "I'm already lying down happily. Why are you troubling me, man?" So, you know what I'm trying to say? So, your happiness quotient does not depend on what you have and how much you gather. It matters on what your mind state is. Now, I'm coming to this because you know why people are so panicky? Of course, I'm not saying the virus is not dangerous. It is dangerous. All precautions have to be taken, were taken in many ways. But what bothered people was the lockdown. They can't go anywhere. They're sitting in one confined space. Is it so bad to sit in a confined space? That is the question I'm going to ask. Is it? Please remember that in ancient times, no pandemic, there were people, yogis, sages, monks, who deliberately brought about a lockdown in their own lives and lived in solitude. Why? Because in solitude you can study many things. I am not saying it is good to have a lockdown. Lockdown is necessary because of the pandemic. Can we look at it in another way and say that I am not isolated, but I am in solitude? Change the word. I am in solitude, and since I am in solitude, I have a chance to study so many things, understand myself, understand my family. Otherwise, what happens in a city, for instance? The wife goes to work somewhere, husband goes to work somewhere, children are sent to school. In some cases, they are simply dropped in the residential school, so they don't have to worry at all for a year. And then they come back in the evening, they meet for half an hour, everything is hunky dory. Nothing happened. Now you are not going out, working from home. People get irritated with each other. You know why? Because then this is the time when all your latent tendencies come out. I would say when the latent tendencies come out, it's a good thing for you to study them and see this is what I actually am. I am not distracted now. I am sitting here. So many tendencies come out. If I don't see this, how do I handle this? So, to live together, understanding each other, finding out ways and means to engage yourself without having to run around in a circle all the time. All this was made possible by this lockdown. God forbid that it doesn't continue and there are no more lockdowns. I am saying even if there are no lockdowns, occasionally initiate a deliberate voluntary lockdown for some time in your lives. Stay home. Or go stay in a quiet place where nobody bothers you. That is the time when you can grow. And if you think now it might get boring, I don't know what to do, my energies, no, your energies will grow. If you look at it, if you change the word isolation to solitude, it's in. And the thing is, when solitude comes close by, we are afraid of it, we run away from it. Stay. And if you are in a village, it's even better. If you are in a city, well, it's not so easy, but it's still possible. So, all I am trying to say is there are positive sides to this. So that, to use a metaphor, like the lowly worm that builds a cocoon, and then when it matures, the cocoon breaks and it flies out a multicolored butterfly. Utilize this time of isolation. We did that. I've talked to so many people and tried to change their mode of thinking. Listen to good music, do good reading, write, do various things. Now you say, then what about my body? Yes, you're free to exercise. In India, we have such ancient ways of exercise where you don't have to run around. You do your yogasanas. How useful are yogasanas? Yoga is not meant only to develop your muscles and your joints. It's also meant to bring about a change in your mode of thinking and perception. So practice yoga, and I don't have to go into it because there are yoga institutions teaching yoga, so you can pick it up from where you want. So learn yogasanas. If you didn't have time before the lockdown, you had enough time now, and now there is still time. And now we are probably entering into a post-pandemic stage. This is the time when we should prepare ourselves to face emergencies that could arise in the future. Please, nature is unpredictable. So, this time utilize to develop your capacity to be able to handle the future. I am 100% sure that once the post-pandemic period is over and everything comes back to normal, many factors including economy, expansion, intellectual understanding, they will all grow in an unprecedented manner. I am looking at it in a very bright way, please. I don't want to be pessimistic about this. Enough, the time is over. We need to look forward and move forward. Okay. Having said that, I should not forget my subject, most important subject, meditation. This time when you could sit at home in solitude during the lockdown, you could have easily practiced different modes of meditation. Again, go into the books, look at the teachers, what they teach. I just want to mention a key point. This is an ideal opportunity for us to grow beyond our boundaries. I am talking about the mind boundaries. We have somehow been for years hypnotized into the feeling that we are limited individuals, we cannot do that, we cannot do this. Basic effect of meditation is to de-hypnotize yourself from this conditioning and uncondition your mind. If you uncondition your mind, it can reach heights which you cannot even imagine, because mind by its very nature is a part of consciousness. So there is no limit to it. You can expand as much as you want. I am not talking about physical expansion, please understand, not territorial expansion. I am talking about the capacity of the mind to grow from a three-dimensional existence to a multi-dimensional outlook and experience. This happens, and this can be done through quiet meditation, through pranayam, through chanting of mantras which have certain effects, the sounds have certain effects. During the pandemic, when we had a lockdown, we could easily have done it, doesn't matter, we can still do it. Look at the whole world in a post-pandemic, well-lit manner. Don't look at the darkness which just is passing away. We are entering twilight zone now. So when you enter twilight, what do? Chant the Gayatri. Move forward to the new dawn that is approaching. Let us not hang on to the skeleton of what has happened before. Let us move forward. Now, having said that, I must not give you a practical way of meditation which will take you 10 minutes every day to do. Sit down quietly every day, morning and evening. Say to yourself, I am breaking the conditioning of the mind and allowing my mind to expand to higher dimensions, resulting in my being able to live in this world and work as efficiently as I can, and also discover my inner reality, which is blissful and all-pervading. Having said that, sit down quietly, close your eyes, allow your mind to watch your breath. We call it hum sa. As you inhale, in your mind chant the sound of hum. Exhale, chant the same sa. So when you inhale it's hum, when you exhale it's sa. Just try it for 10 minutes. Suddenly you will see that your mind is calmed down. You are free from the conditionings which have been imposed on you by nature and by your own self-hypnosis. Enjoy the peace that comes out of it. And then open your eyes, bow down, thank the earth for giving us enough to sustain us, and then go about your daily work. So, from Madanapalli village, I am giving you the village story for the annual Ideal Village Conference of Stanford University. Thank you very much. I hope you benefited from this talk. Namaskar.